Hey there, welcome to Authentically Raw. I'm your host, Jamie Barris. Hi, Claire Uncapher. Did I pronounce it okay?
You did? Hello. Good job.
Welcome to the Authentically Raw podcast. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good today.
I'm going to let you take it away. Tell our audience who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, as she said, Claire Uncapher, I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We were just talking before she hit the record button. We both love beaches. And I work with women and some men, but mostly women. I help them uncover the root cause of their stress and overwhelm and depression and anxiety, to truly heal, to stop managing the symptoms. And from my point of view, depression and anxiety are symptoms of something else. And once we can uncover what that problem is, then everything changes. And this started because I had depression and anxiety for my whole adult life. I did all the things, yet it still kept popping its ugly little head up. And I felt like something was just inherently wrong with me. Like I was faulty, flawed, send me back to the factory. and then I found root cause work, which is subconscious work. And I was able to step into joy and happiness. And I was actually able to heal. And it was so eye-opening because I realized why I was unable to fully get a handle on it. It was like, doing a puzzle, but you can't find all the pieces. I could not sit across from a therapist and access the information that I needed that we needed to talk about in order to heal, if that makes sense. Talking about my bad week or my stress or my childhood trauma, that wasn't going to cut it. It was in my subconscious mind, and I needed to get that information from there. And then that's when everything changed. I started working with women and men, but women. So sometimes men get drugged to me. and I identified, it was really interesting. It started out as just, let's uncover the root cause. But then it evolved into, oh my goodness, there's these 5 kind of categories, I call them the 5 pillars, that I'm seeing in every single person. And I had them too. I just thought it was me. Remember, send me back to the factory. And so there seems to be this type of depressive person or anxious person that we have accumulated habits and beliefs and ways of being and seeing the world and seeing ourselves that contribute to our unhappiness. So I help people through those.
So I'm curious, what were your most present symptoms of depression and anxiety? What were you feeling the most?
Well, it was different. I had postpartum depression, which I honestly believe is a completely different beast than depression. Having had both, they feel different. Yeah. But also I'll just talk to, because postpartum depression is more, I do believe, I'm a nurse. I do believe postpartum depression is hormonal, biochemical, makes us crazy. Plus there's a lot of transitions we're going through that we aren't as a culture taught how to process. Right.
Does that apply to the perimenopausal, menopausal hormone stuff too?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're women. We know when we're not right? Yeah. With hormonally. Yeah. But so just the regular depression, it ranged over the years, but I can describe it as sadness. And I always said there was this inner crying. There was a silent scream on the inside, and everything looked perfect from the outside. I had this great life. There was no reason that I should be so unhappy. But it was like a silent scream on the inside. I didn't want to be here. I had suicidal thoughts. I didn't want to be here. I didn't like it. And so crying, sadness, hopelessness, and it would come in bouts, but there was always this underlying, I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that produces probably even more feelings of, like you said, I had no reason, I have a good life, or, things look good from the outside. And so I think people then get hard on themselves, like, like you said, what's wrong with me? Is there something inherently wrong with me? I have no reason or no right to truly feel this way.
Right.
And it doesn't help.
But we do, that's the
We
whole
do feel that
thing,
way.
is that I honestly believe that there's nothing wrong with me. Like, I don't believe in the disease model of depression anymore. I mean, I'm not going to argue with people. There are instances, I'm sure, where it's clinical depression, but I'm talking about like the epidemic of unhappiness and stress. And we go to the doctor and they give us the label, hey, here, you have diagnosis and anxiety, take these pills and go talk to somebody and cope and manage, and good luck with that. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And the root cause is more than how, where, why, and when you ever started feeling this way. When you uncover the root cause of your unhappiness, it always is a belief or a conclusion that you came to about yourself, something you believe about yourself or the world around you that became part of your belief system. And things like, so mine was, I'm not lovable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hard to love. And even worse than that, I'm not very likable either. I because of things that happened to me, I internalized that core belief. I wasn't aware of it because I took care of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now I can see, looking back, how it affected my whole life, my relationships, my decision making, my everything. I just didn't. I didn't feel like at my core, like the fact that I'm just here on this earth means that I deserve love. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine how much pain, emotional pain, that ripple effect has. And so other beliefs are, like, I don't deserve love. I don't matter. Yeah. Bad things happen to me. I don't deserve good things.
I think a lot of women also have the I'm not enough.
I was just going to say, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. There's some like measure up here where good enough starts, and I'm here.
Yeah.
And this gap between here and here is, my misery. And so,
nothing I ever do is good enough. And then
nothing I ever
of unworthiness.
Mm-hmm. And so the subconscious work is not scary. I have 3 certifications in hypnotherapy. I don't hypnotize people anymore because I don't believe we need to. It's the answers are just like right there.
I think that, men also, but we're both women. So I am going to talk specifically about us. I think so many women deal with these feelings of feeling I don't matter. I'm unimportant. I'm unlovable or likable. Nothing I ever do is good enough. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. We might not be verbalizing these things, but we're feeling these things internally. Mm-hmm. And it creates so much anxiety.
Yeah.
And
much. And I will tell you that I think everybody has a little bit of that in them. Yeah. And so what the subconscious work does is it directs your mind to take you to the origin of that. People and then that's like that's not the end of the weird part, but that's like, you know what I mean? That's
right.
That's like everyone's the subconscious work. Oh, that's weird. Well, you can talk about, that's the problem. We can't intellectualize ourselves out of that belief. Mm-hmm. We can't go, listen, self. listen, Claire, you're good enough. You did this, 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 and this, and you are this, 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 and this, and this, that, you know, and you've accomplished this, and you're a great mom and wife. You can't do that. Your subconscious mind calls BS on all of that.
Yeah.
And so you revisit the original core wound, the time that you took that on. And I'll just give you an example. It's simple. Like sometimes it's not, I think that's the trick.
Yeah.
Is people think it's going to be this horrible trauma with a big T situation. But one client, her mom was a perfectionist, and she was like in second or third grade, and she went to a scene where she was doing her best with her math homework, doing her best. And she really was like her best, but her best wasn't good enough for her mom. So her mom ripped up her homework and made her do it over and over and over again, and was berating her. And in that moment, and when you do the subconscious work, you're able to kind of like read the thoughts of that third grade self, was like, it'll never be good enough.
Right.
Nothing I ever do will be good enough. Yeah. So guess what? That's why you can't heal it by talking about giving it evidence, because the way beliefs work, and this is the science and neuroplasticity of it, is they're hardwired and they run in the background until they are replaced or upgraded.
Yes.
So that's why you can go to a therapist or take medicine and you're like, nothing's changed, really, because you haven't fixed the problem.
Right. You haven't overridden those old beliefs that are causing all these emotions. And I think a lot of that too, though, is it's these, you know, you talk of like the second grader in her homework, and as an adult, how in all of her relationships, she is trying to resolve that issue from back then in these other relationships, and has no idea that's why
she has no idea that that's the source of her pain and unhappiness. And that's why I'm like, oh my gosh, why aren't we asking that question? And most often just revisiting the scene with our adult eyes, right? We can look at it and be like, well, oh my God, I see why she came up with that, but it's not true.
Right.
Really, her mom's a little nuts.
Yeah.
My mom's a little nuts, and she was hard on me, but she did the best she could, because that's how you parented back then, and all the things.
Right. But think about it. We pick things like that up throughout our lives. And I mean, everybody does. And you store these things, and then all of a sudden you reach adulthood and you have all of these things, you know, from your past that you haven't resolved, and you end up feeling, you know, all these different feelings, and you don't know how to manage them because they're just been storing and storing. You've either been suppressing or, you know, whatever you're doing to cope. And then it seems like, you know, how do I get out of this now? And like you said, you go to a doctor, and often it's, well, take this pill. Well, what does that have to do with?
And now you have a depressive or anxiety disorder. Now you've got this label that you have to wear your whole life. But what if we just explored, hey, what's really going on here? Let's pop the hood and see. And it doesn't have to be childhood stuff. I was working with an executive woman who on the outside was highly successful, but she was stressed and unhappy and had some self-confidence issues around the workplace competition and stuff like that. We went back to a scene when she was like 20, and her boyfriend cheated on her that she was so in love with. And how did that make her feel?
Yeah.
Not good enough. If I was pretty enough, if I was nice enough, then he would have chosen me. Then he would have liked me. You know, I'm not fun enough. I'm boring. All these, but it was like 20 beliefs in that scenario. Yeah. I was like, look what, you know, I'm boring even. Yeah. I'm from a breakup. That's what her mind just went there. And so now, 25 years later, she's in corporate America, struggling and unhappy in her life, and she has no idea why. But she can she can, do all the things. And hey, I like yoga and all the things. But, you can do all the things to make you feel better and take the supplements and meditate. And I meditate every day. But you're not going to fix what's wrong.
Right. You have to do some deep dive in yourself to figure out,
Yeah.
you said, like, what is the core wound
Yeah.
and where did it
And
come
I
from? And
teach people
yes,
how to
how
do
it's
that.
still showing up in my life. And I think once you're aware of the processes that you can do, with yourself, like the self-awareness and seeing these things and really uncovering your fears and your wounds. And I mean, I know I dealt a long time with it. It's still, I mean, we're all human. We have our emotions. And one of my biggest fears has always been rejection. But then to look at that, how that affects every area of your life. Are you putting yourself out there? Are you speaking the truth? I mean, um, I used to be like such a big people pleaser, and how that fear of rejection, well, you people please, and then you become codependent, and how it just ends up, you spiral down. And until you can realize, okay, these are the fears behind why I'm doing what I'm doing, it's making me feel this way, you can't uncover, you can't heal. But I know when I'm feeling it, and I can be
Yeah.
like, oh,
It's
that's
been
my fear of
awakened.
rejection coming up. And but then I think that's the thing, is how we end up going down the spiral of, you know to depression or sadness, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is that we're feeling, is then once you can recognize that, hey, this is what I'm feeling right now, it's being, stirred up by that fear of rejection. And then you can sit with that and manage and regulate those emotions. And as you do that, you become more resilient to that
Yeah.
fear, to that emotion.
And what root cause work does is it takes the rejection or whatever. It will take you exactly to the scene
Right.
where that first happened to you,
Right.
and all the conclusions you came to, and all the identities you took on, and all the decisions you made about yourself, and how you were going to do it differently in order to protect yourself from
Right.
ever feeling this way again. And then you heal that, and then it's not the effort. That's why I say, like, it's hard. I'm like, you just feel freer. It's like relief and release, because it's just not there anymore.
It sounds very similar to inner child work. This is your 5 pillars of your inside out healing method. So you, number 1, discover the root cause. That's what we're obviously talking about. Live authentically is 2. Number 3, argument free communication in a perfect world. Oh gosh, wouldn't that be amazing? Number 4, silence the inner critic. And I think that is huge. Number 5, the body speak method. So that's
Yeah.
discover what the body already knows. And oh, that I love, because the body is so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
wise. So yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit about, discovering the root cause, but let's sit there for one more minute. So let's say, like you mentioned, I'll use your example. You're going to your therapy, maybe you are taking some medicine, and people are still feeling all the feels. So if that's where they are, or maybe they haven't done any of that yet, but they're feeling all the feels, depression and anxiety, and they are thinking, okay, I need to get to the root cause. Like, what would you suggest?
Um, I would suggest they ask their brilliant subconscious mind that knows everything about them what's going on. I would tell them that the answers are within them, and that they have access to them, and they just need to get quiet and listen. And if they don't know how to do that, learn.
Yeah.
It's like a skill we should all know. It's a
Yeah.
life skill.
Definitely. Well, and it's not something that's necessarily taught as children. And I think it's harder uh, in the world we live in. There's so many distractions. It takes effort to shut
Yeah.
yourself away. I think that is, I mean, I'm 49, and I remember a
Mm-hmm.
time where it was relatively easy to be with yourself and your own thoughts and have some quiet. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the world we live in. It is more challenging. And I think sometimes for a lot of people, it's really scary to be alone with your thoughts.
Yeah. And the method I teach, and I teach it to people because I'm also like, if you are going to really hurdle this depression, anxiety, and happiness thing, you have to be able to manage it as life happens, as
Yeah.
things come up. So
Mhm.
I teach it to people. It's a 10-step process. It's the body speak method. And it's just kind of my way. There's lots of ways, but it's my way, that I teach people how to become, when you're triggered, what's wrong, what's going on here, where's that origin, understand it, process it, release it, and move on.
Right.
And so, and it's the answers are all within you. And I just teach people how to get that.
To be more intuitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So with number 2 in live authentically, how does that play in? I
Well,
love that word.
I know, I've listened to a few episodes of the authentically raw, and one of them was your one on yeah, I forgot the title of it, but it was just you, and it was talking about authenticity, and I was like, just putting my makeup on, and I was like, sing it, sister. Like, and yeah, it's just, but I think that surprised me, and it surprises people I talk to, that is like, we don't realize how we all do it. And because it even is present in relationships, healthy relationships, when we love people, that they pressure us to do what they want us to do without really thinking about it. And it happens all the time with good intentions. It's not like they're bad people and need to be cut out of our lives, but those people that tend towards that unhappiness, stress, depressive, anxiety wheelhouse have learned that it's not okay to be me. The me that is me is not acceptable. And they look for permission to act or make decisions from other people a lot. And when they meet rejection or ridicule or disappointment, they'll alter their choices and decisions. Well, what that does over time is create tiny little acts of self-betrayal over your life. And then all of a sudden, you're unhappy and you don't know why.
I refer to that a lot as self-abandonment. You completely, it's
Yeah.
like you're ghosting yourself and
But
you
people
lose that
don't know they're
connection.
doing it, and they
Right.
don't know, like it's just the way that we are. And also, when you said in the episode, when you start living authentically, you say it honestly, kindly, and directly, but you let other people know what your needs are and how you feel. And then they can have whatever reaction they want to have, but that's the truth. Like, and then I'm not going to change how I feel or my approach or how I view it because you don't like how I feel.
Right.
That's the sticking point.
Yes.
That's where we go wrong.
Yeah. Because
We
as soon
wait.
as we do, we lose ourselves. And how can you be happy if you're really just walking through life who you're not,
Right,
being someone
but
else?
we don't even know that we're
Right.
not,
Yeah.
right? We don't even know that we're not until we're not, is the funny
Exactly.
point part. But even in little ways, like I had a client who was a very successful in business, and she didn't buy the car she wanted because her family would make comments about her success and her money. And she worked hard. And so but she really wanted it. And I said, how would it make you feel to have that car? And she was just like, I work really hard, and I'd be proud of myself for my independence and my grit and and I had to go through some stuff to get where I am. And maybe it's a materialistic goal, but I just, in my mind's eye, I see that car and I want that car. And I was like, and what's stopping you? What other people think, what
Right.
other people say, right? And so it would truly bring her joy. And you talked about just sitting on the couch with sweatpants, but then when it becomes hard is when it's easy when it's like the nasty friend or family member to be like, I ain't going to that event.
Right. Right.
But when it's people we love and that we care about, but you're asking me to do something that I just know myself. And I bet you're like me, Jamie. My body will not let me betray myself.
Right.
I will get sick. I will
That,
get stressed. I won't sleep. So the cost is too high. I would get depressed. I will get resentful. I will get anxious. So the cost is too high
right.
for me. And so that is why I am unapologetically authentic.
Yeah.
And not all relationships survive that.
Right. And
Is
I'm
the
glad that you
honest
brought
truth.
that up though. You start to feel, this anger, the resentment, like whatever is being stirred up. And I think that so often we just try to push that down. But like when these
Yes.
feelings are coming up, that is your body trying to get you back in alignment with who you are, that authentic self. And women especially push that away and deny themselves to be themselves, and then here we are, depressed, anxious,
Yeah.
overwhelmed, burnt out, stressed out. It's so common. And I think I have to, it's crazy how just different synchronicities, because just with a client earlier today, we were talking about, finances and things, and in the same sort of thing, how other people's comments and beliefs, when they say them to you about things that you have, things that you buy, maybe it's experiences, vacations, just your whole lifestyle when it comes to money, how it can really just totally sabotage how just how we live. It's just really staying true to us and being authentic, because, and I just laugh, I'm like, money, bottom line, it's a number, right? If it could be a piece of paper, a card, or whatever, but it's numbers. But we are so emotionally attached to those numbers based
Hmm.
on, the feedback we get from other people. And
Yeah.
it
But
crushes so many people.
once you truly don't care, like don't give a flying
Right.
what other people
Right.
think about you, you've reached freedom. You've
Yes.
reached true happiness.
Yes.
And and the way you get there is you realize that they are looking at you and your situation through their lens, their vantage point, their what they would do in your situation, what they think you should do because
Yeah.
that's what they would do in your situation, but they aren't you is the
Right.
problem.
Yes.
And so they mean well, bless their hearts. But it's white noise
Yeah.
because, and I have trusted advisors. I have trusted advisors that I
Right.
bounce things off people, but I use them as bouncing boards. So
Right.
that their words that they say to me, I can see, how does that sit with me? How does that feel?
Right.
You know, and
Well,
that
and
lead, oh, go ahead.
no, I think it's very helpful too to understand, and this is where our conversation went earlier, is that whenever, you have to remember in the moment that that person is speaking, whether they're a family member or a friend that means well, or it's somebody that actually is trying to tear you down because they're envious, or whatever it is, that everyone is speaking their insecurities. And if you can in the moment understand, oh, this is their insecurity speaking, and no, I'm not taking on your insecurities and your fears right now, I'm standing firm, in my own self-trust and my own security, that helps. But I think that's a slippery slope when someone can pull you away from that,
And
and
that
you have to
leads
be
kind
careful.
of into the communication piece.
Yes.
So I always assume positive intent, always.
Yes.
People, I always, I mean, I'm sure some people don't mean well, but I
So this
always
is number
assume
3, the argument 3.
communication.
Yes, communication. Yeah.
And it started, my husband and I had a huge argument. We both were reactive and had a lot of triggers, and we argued a lot early on in our relationship. And I sat in the car after he left, and I thought to myself, I was like, I won't stay if it's like this. I won't. I'm not gonna. Like, this is not gonna be my life. And I love him, and he's the love of my life. So I went inside, and my defenses were all stripped down. And I said, I love you. I said, I love you, and you love me, right? That's the truth, right? Do you love me? And he said, yes. And I said, so I'm not trying to take you out, and you're not trying to take me out.
Yeah.
So we need to figure this out, and let's do this differently. Let's see. I'm trying, help me understand you.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's one, always seek to understand. Like if someone's throwing a fit, it's like you're a detective. And
Mhm.
you're trying to understand what they're really upset about,
Right.
okay? And you assume positive intent, and you can ask them, what are you trying to accomplish here? Like what was your intention? Because oftentimes people have very good intentions, it just doesn't execute that way.
Yeah.
And we stay centered, calm, grounded. If we become not centered, calm, and grounded, we step away from the conversation
Right.
until we can come back to ourselves. But the way my husband and I argue, you said pushing emotions down away. There's no bypassing emotions in our house. We say the ugly things because we hold space for that. I can say, I'm starting to feel a little resentful, and I'm just sharing that with you. And
Yeah.
sometimes like the feathers start ruffling and I'm like, stand down. I'm sharing my experience. You didn't do anything wrong. You know,
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel resentful because of this, and I don't want to feel that way. Or I'll say, he owns a gym. Sometimes, he goes and he works out, and then he's the owner of the gym. And so he comes home like 3 hours later.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, I'm starting to feel, this was a real conversation, a little resentful, because it's like, we have 4 kids. I'm like, you go to the gym, work out, hang with your buddies. And he, of course, didn't see it that way at all. He's like, I want to be home with y'all. People talk to me and pull me, and, I get stuck there. But we have that conversation because I was like, I don't want to play the role of resentful wife.
Right.
So I just want to so how can we do this better? And I was like, in the conversation, I was like, so what do I need? Because I understand what you're saying. It's not like you're going and kicking back and I think I'm not going to go home and just abandon Claire with all the responsibilities. You're working out, you're trying to get out of there. It's your place of business. So you're like, I'll just do this one thing. I'll refill the vending machine. And then that turns into an hour, and then somebody's having a conversation and they all look up to him. And so somebody is sharing that they're going through a divorce. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
Right.
he gets stuck. And
Yeah.
could he be more efficient? Yes. And he said, I'll be more efficient. But I was like, what I really need, I don't really mind. It's the lack of communication.
Mhm.
It's the radio silence. So, and he doesn't want me to feel resentful, and I don't want to play the role of resentful wife. So I said, it would be awesome if you could just hey, babe, just finish my workout. I'm going to do a few things, have a few conversations. I love you. How's it going out home? Like a check-in.
Yes.
And then, hey, I'm packing up. I'm getting ready to leave. And just so I'm not and I said, I think that would make, and I said, and that's my own stuff and I'm aware of it. I think that would make me feel not abandoned because I had abandonment issues.
Yeah.
So I said, and he's like, I can do that. So it wasn't an argument that it would have been 5 years ago.
Right.
Right. I'm sharing with you how I feel.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you brought up the resent, because I think that as we age, so many women get full of resent. And the number one thing that can kill resent is to kill the silence, because silence breeds resent. So just by you having the conversation, just the words, I'm starting to feel resentful, that dissolves half of it.
Half of it.
Right.
But if we can hold it, you can hold it, it's an agreement you come to with your partner. And when we were learning it, and I have to tell you, it took us a couple of years to get to this place where we have this amazing communication. We even in the interim, we make an agreement with each other. Hey, if I don't do it perfectly, can you just say would you like to try that again? And you don't say, would you like to try that again?
Oh, you don't get an attitude and a tone?
And if it goes there, then you're done. The conversation's done. You're not you're not yourselves anymore. You're your old selves. You're your 3rd grade self, whatever. But and so that's what it looks like. It looks like ugly stuff. It
Yeah.
looks like him telling me, it makes me so angry when you take over.
Yeah.
He's like, you take over all the time. I'm doing something and
Yeah.
I'm not doing it right. So you just come in and you just take over. And it makes me feel like you think I am stupid or I can't do it and you're so awesome. And I'm like, and this is the level of honesty we have. I'm like, I'm
I kind of agree.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but I didn't think you were doing that right.
Yeah.
And he like then he rolls his eyes and I'm like, I know, right? I'm being honest though. Like, you're right. My and that's unreasonable because because I do feel, and this is what I'm saying to him, I do know that my way is not the right way and that your way is right too. And that my control card came out for a second and I apologize, baby.
Yeah.
And I will try to do better. And in my mind, I'm like, but try to do better too.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
and no, but it's and humor, lots of humor. Oh my gosh, lots of humor. But we say the ugly stuff. You have to,
Right.
but you can't do that if you don't have the agreement with each other. And he's a dude's dude. He is not a transformational growth spirituality
Right. Let's
kind
wear
of
our heart on
guy.
our sleeve, vulnerable kind of guy.
He owns a
Right.
gym, wears his hat backwards.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he's a dude, watches football. Like, he's a dude. But
Yeah.
he loves me. And
Right.
I was honest with him and I just was like, we got to do this different, you know,
Yes.
because this is a remarriage for both of us.
Okay.
And
Well,
I said, yeah, we don't want to do the same mistake.
no, this made me think of, and I believe it's Eckhart Tolle, I think in The Power of Now. I love how he describes surrendering, because I think so many people think, I'm not going to surrender. That's like basically telling somebody else, yeah, you're right. And, or no, or yeah, you're right. And I was wrong. And,
Yeah.
no one wants to do that. In the way he describes it to me, this is, how I've interpreted it, is basically, just let your defenses fall, because obviously
Mm-hmm.
there's something in you that's getting triggered, right? And when you feel threatened, we get defensive, and it's just our fears speaking. So to me, it's surrendering it's not giving up, it's not throwing in the towel, it's not, cowering down to anyone. It is surrendering to, I'm not going to be defensive, I'm not going to argue. What action then can I take? Because surrendering doesn't mean just like dropping and walking away. It's dropping the defensiveness, the
Uh-huh.
arguing, whatever that is. And then sometimes it could be just, yeah, I do need to walk away from this. This isn't worth my time. But surrendering could also be in that moment, then owning your part.
You're right, babe. You're right. I did that.
I think that's a common thing though in marriages, how there's that silent war of, we're doing something a particular way, and then they try to help out and we overtake them. And then it makes them feel like they don't know
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing, when really we're just like a control freak about our kids or the house or whatever. And nothing is ever said, but there's this silent breeding of like anger, resent, and
Yeah.
whatever.
But
And
once you
surrender.
say it, it's and
Yeah.
I just have fabulous husband, but like another instance, we don't argue all the time, but he came in from taking out the trash one day and I was cleaning up after dinner and he said, I just checked in with myself. And he had been a little quiet. And he was like, and I think what's really bothering me is, we were able to talk about it, and I was like,
Yeah.
really? That was bothering you?"
Yeah.
But and Brene Brown says like that amazing phrase, like the story I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
What's the
Oh,
story you're telling yourself about this? Like him going to the gym. What's the story I was telling myself about that? He's hanging out, having the grand old time. He's left me here with all this, and he's abandoned me. That's the story, right?
yeah.
And it's like, really, how often does this happen? Number one,
Right.
like,
Right.
so that I have to call BS on myself. Sometimes
Right.
I have
Stop
to
telling
own
myself
it.
that story. Yeah.
And sometimes it's me and sometimes it is like, hey, babe, I didn't really like that you did that,
Right.
So,
Exactly. And I think that sometimes it helps then to get their story. Well, what is
Mm-hmm.
his story? Because his story is, a complete 180. He really did want to
Well,
get home from the gym and know but it's good that there's that communication to
Well, the
open up.
resentment you just said
Yes.
it. You said
Yeah.
husband, like it makes them feel
Silence. Yeah.
incompetent,
It does.
right? It makes them feel like it takes away their power. It makes them feel incompetent. They're trying to
Yeah.
do something. And because we do it standing on our head and rubbing our bellies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like and they're not doing it fast enough for us.
Yes.
We think jumping in is a good idea, but now I know, hey, if I do that, that makes the man that I love feel disempowered
Right.
and like sends a message to him that I don't want to send. So I am going to check myself and sit on my hands.
Yeah.
and distract myself,
Right.
so that I don't do that, because I don't want to make him feel that way.
But I think that is it reminds me again of the surrender. That is the way to surrender. They're fine. Let them do it their way. It's not my way. It's not how I would do it. Is this a life or death situation? No. This made me think of this, and I hadn't thought of this in years, but my husband and I are going on 25 years of marriage. And
Oh, congratulations.
oh, thanks. So I want to say about the first 10 years, though, he would always comment on, he would rearrange the dishwasher after I loaded it. And then he would start to say comments like, "You're doing this on purpose just to piss me off." And I'm like, doing what? Loading it how it's not supposed to be loaded. And I'm like, yes, you're right. All day long. I cannot wait to load the dishwasher completely, stupid, so that you can come home, so I can piss you off, and you can come home and redo it your way. That's you caught me. Like, I mean, it's just kind of funny, those stupid little things, but it's like that had something to do with the way he was brought up. And obviously but there was like this war. And until it was finally like, okay, how would you like me to do it? I'll do it your way then. But yeah, so,
it's not a big deal to me. It's a big deal to you. I'll alter my behavior, right?
Exactly. That's that surrender. So number 4, though, and this one's huge, is silencing the inner critic, because wow. If we talk about your subconscious mind completely ruling your life in that inner critic, and until you can really talk back or get over that inner critic, I don't know. I mean, that is essential. I'm so glad that's on there.
Yeah, you start thinking of your subconscious mind as, or that voice as, a bratty second grader. And all that bratty second grader wants to do is stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to go home in her room because that's where it's safe. She doesn't want you to do things. She'll tell you you're not awesome sauce at a party because she wants you to be accepted. She wants you to be loved. She wants you to, safety. Conform.
Yeah.
And so it's as simple and as complicated, really, as, and there's a lot of actual science on this, but it's as simple and as complicated as taming that voice, as you're in charge. Hey, I'm in charge here.
Yeah.
And this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And when that voice pops up, because it will, and it still does, Jamie, it still does. You're not gonna, it's not gonna go like it's almost like they leave us alone until they're needed again, you know? Because you might be pushing yourself. And I told my husband, I've been making some, with my business growth, right? I've been like, I'm not comfortable. This is not comfortable. And he was like, then that's good.
Yeah, that's exactly where you need to be then.
Exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know this. And so I have to, and this is where, positive affirmations are so, I call them truth statements, because what my inner voice is telling me is, you're not going to do that. Why put all that work in? You'll never make that. We're going to go broke. The house is going to hell. That fear-based voice. And you have to be like, okay, it's true. Like, validate it, right? Okay, I see why I awoke you from
Yeah.
your
Right.
peaceful slumber. It
Yeah.
is true, you
Yes.
know. Um, but I'm okay,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do this and this and this. And you piping in my ear is not helping.
Yeah.
And so you just recognize it when it happens. And shedding and silencing the inner critic is also about shedding skins, changing your identity. Like I'm no longer, and you do this a few times through the transformational process. I don't identify as a depressed and anxious person. Do you know
Yeah.
how huge that is for me? Like I'm a different person, and people in my life from the past are still discussing, right? I've seen this on
Yeah.
Instagram. They're discussing a version of me that no longer even exists. She's dead.
Yeah.
She died.
Yeah.
Bless her heart.
But
Rest in
okay,
peace.
I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to interrupt you because I like that. Because I think that is exactly how you can combat that inner critic. It is talking to your inner critic like that. So when that voice speaks up and says something like you can't do this, your house is going to pot,
Or
all these goals
you're
you
so
have.
lazy. I'm so
Right.
lazy. Yeah.
But then you talk to that inner critic. No, that's old us. You're not there anymore. You are not that depressed, that anxious person. Yes, you can do this. And it's almost like you're talking to it like a small child. I
Hmm.
understand your fear. I
I
understand you're
understand you're
scared. You're trying
afraid
to
that I might
protect me.
fail.
Right. You're trying to protect me, but we're going to be okay and I'm going to do this.
And
And
letting
when
it know, this is the part that the positivity coaches and a lot of coaches miss, I think. Letting it know you're right.
yeah,
This might not work out.
yeah.
And
But we're going to be okay.
but just when you say that, it's almost like it goes, oh, thank God. I didn't think you knew. And now
Right.
that I know that you know, like,
Right. I just was warning you.
yeah, like it's not, you're right. This might not work out, but
We're going to try
I'm
anyway.
going to try anyway.
If it
Because
doesn't work out, we're going to
yes,
learn what doesn't work and we'll move on. It's not the end of the
yes,
world.
yes. And so chill,
Yes.
but that's the piece, the validation piece. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I have a confession because
Oh,
I think this
fun.
is a healthy, fun thing to do is name it. Have a name for your inner critic and talk back to it because it pulls you out so that to me it helps zoom out so you can look at your inner critic or whatever is you're kind of witnessing it's like little temper tantrum, it's whatever it's doing, like oh my gosh, it's a little freak out.
Uh-huh.
And so one of my nicknames was from when I was little was Jamila Jolene. And so I would be like, okay, Jamila, or whatever, chill out.
Yeah.
Like you got
Yeah.
this. I know you're scared. I know what and when you start to talk to yourself like that, I think you can bring a sense of humor into it. And you can often see how ridiculous your inner critic is. And I think that is a huge anxiety reducer because we get so caught up in our heads and we try to overthink and intellectualize and rationalize and this inner critic when sometimes it's just calming it down, like taking an emotional stance and
Hmm.
soothing it, and it's because it really is ridiculous most of the time, truly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's not bad. Like your
No.
inner critic, silencing your inner critic, it it wants the best for you. It's like
Yes.
an overprotective parent, right?
Overprotective.
I want to wrap
Really.
you in bubble wrap so nothing bad happens to you.
Yeah.
Well, that's like not a good plan.
Right. So give your inner critic a hug. I understand what you're doing, but back off a little bit. I got this.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, but none
Thanks.
yet.
So, which leads us though, in your number 5 is the body speak method.
Mm-hmm.
Discovering what your body already knows. And I love this because this is the part we all want to skip over because feeling our feels, really sitting with our emotions. And this is crazy because I had 2 clients before you today and we've talked about so many things that wow, it's crazy, but that was one thing, is
There's
sitting with
always
your pain.
themes. There's themes,
There's
aren't there?
themes and
Yeah.
the synchronicities, but that
Yep.
was one of the things that we talked about is it's so easy for us to, well, I mean, number one, addictions. Any addiction is just escaping from pain. But how often we just want to jump over that pain. And until we sit with it and move through it, you can't heal with it. And so you're just storing this. And when you're storing all that, yes, you're going to be depressed. Yes, you're going to be full of
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, because when do you have a release valve?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. We're all, most of us, aware we have anger or sadness or grief or stress in us that needs to be released, but we don't know how. Like,
How?
yeah, I know I need to heal. Thank you. But how? Because, and people release emotions that have been in them for years, years.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, oh my gosh, we really hold those.
And I do want to comment how it is so not linear, because I think a lot of people start down the journey. There are a lot of different things you can do, whether, for some people it's sitting down and, journaling. For other people, it's going to therapy or doing, energy healing or somatic practices, walking outside in nature. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do, and you have to, and maybe you do all of them, or maybe whatever you find that works
Mm-hmm.
for you. But a lot of what happens is you start going up, 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 and then poosh, you plummet down. And
Mm-hmm.
because it gets hard. And a lot of people then get stuck again. And I think it's really important to know that, that's life though. I mean, there's going to be ups and there's downs, but I
Yeah.
think after a while, when you really start to understand the how of what works for you, you will you don't the lows aren't as low.
And the expectation that that's the healing journey. I tell people
Mhm.
that the healing journey is like the Candyland game. You
Yeah.
go up 30 steps and then you slide down a slide 100. And the
Yeah.
reason that is because growth and change and transformation take energy, they take
Yeah.
work. And we're tired.
Tired.
Tired. And you
It's
get
physically
tired.
draining. You
And
do.
then you end up, and that's so funny you're talking about this, Jamie, because you grow, you change, you transform, you feeling high, feeling good, and then you like deplete yourself, and this doesn't work, and I'm just something's
See?
wrong,
Yeah.
and
And the
it's
inner critic says, see, I told you
yeah,
so. You
yeah,
can't
up and
heal.
down and up and down. But during those low points,
Mhm.
first expect them. They're going to happen because what you're doing takes energy. That's why people don't lose a lot of weight, is because they get diet fatigue.
Yeah.
And if they would just take a day or two or as many as they need to replenish their energy stores.
Yeah.
And what that looks like is doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
What do I need right now? And that answer is different. Or if they're, in the mix of 4 kids, how can I take care of myself in this? And you do that until the energy stores are back up and running, and then it's not a conscious decision to, okay, now I've got the energy, now I can go again. It's a natural go because
Yeah.
you're full. And I've had to come to that. I respect that rhythm in my life.
Yes. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I feel so many people, we get hard on ourselves when it might not even be, there's something big or, anything going on in our lives, but we're dragging. And to accept that, sometimes it's just life. We have full plates and we're a little bit low on energy, but just to know that, I mean, in the moment of, okay, I'm just tired. I'm not bad. I'm not lazy.
Yeah,
I just
nothing's
need to
wrong
lay
with
down.
me.
No. And I have 4 kids too. And
Yeah.
I will get hard on myself sometimes. Like, I can't keep up on this. I can't keep up on that. And you just feel, but then you start to, just creates then the overwhelm and the frustration. And it doesn't help. I can't keep up on everything. Good. That means I'm going to go lay down. Right?
Yeah. The word we use in our family, in our house, is bandwidth.
Yeah. Oh, I
And it
like
can
that.
be something simple over reading an email about some event coming up. And I'll just say, I don't have bandwidth for that right now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, next.
Yes.
And you're
Yes.
giving yourself permission to filter through all of the things that are coming at you and deciding Some days we don't have bandwidth for a lot.
Okay. So I'm really glad that you said that because I've always been the type of person that just takes off, way more than I can handle. Right. And then, you set yourself up for disappointing yourself because you feel like you're letting other people down or you're not, and all that. And number one, I've obviously started to have more balance in that. Like I like the word bandwidth.
Hmm.
Like I don't have the bandwidth for that, but right from the get go. And I always just use energy. You know what? My answer has to be no, just simply because I just don't have the energy, or I just don't
Right.
want to. Like I just no. But I
That
think
disrupts my peace, and my
it
peace is very
does.
important.
It's very important. And I think with every passing year, that oh my gosh, it gets easier. Number one, but it's more important because when you lose that ability to protect your peace, you lose your power.
Yeah.
That to me, keeping and protecting your peace is a superpower.
We
Huge,
don't do that because we don't feel like we have a right to do that.
right?
Can I do what I want to do? Can I cancel obligations? Can I say no? Yes, ladies, the answer
Yeah.
is yes, you can. You don't, guess what? You don't even have to have a good reason. The
No.
good, awesome reason is I don't feel like it's going to
Yes.
disrupt my peace,
Mhm.
or, I don't have bandwidth for that right now.
Right.
That's it.
And I think it goes a lot with the guilt and recognizing unnecessary guilt, because guilt should be reserved for when you do something wrong. You feel a sense of guilt and it gets you back in line. But so many, especially women, walk around feeling guilty for everything all day long. Well, I didn't meet up with so and so for coffee and I feel guilty. Or I said yes when I really wanted to say no because I felt guilty. And it's like, wait, but did you do anything wrong? It's
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. But
Hmm.
it's everywhere. I hear it come out of mouths all the time. And I used to be guilty of that. Like you wouldn't believe. That has probably been one of my biggest hurdles that I jumped over is the guilt. Like I really truly lived with constant guilt. And but again, it was something like we talked in the beginning, I had to go back and see where that came from. And once my eyes were open, I was like, oh goodness, good riddance. Done. Um,
Yep.
done.
Yeah. It's really about, because people, we are waiting for other people to give us permission, but
Yes.
we have to give ourselves permission. And once we give ourselves permission without good reason or evidence, I just want to do this just because I want to do this, or I want to say no just because I feel like it,
Yeah.
then we start to get happy.
Okay, so this is one of the things too, because I think so many people still get stuck in the how. The how. How do I get rid of these feelings of anxiety, depression, or the overwhelm, the feeling frazzled, whatever it is, sadness, anger, resent, all of this stuff. And I think that is something right there. Recognizing that feeling and then really like let's use the guilt or something for example, but when that guilt comes up, change, you have to make that behavior change and you have to keep doing that repeatedly. Because I'm just going to use the friend wants to go for coffee and you've got a lot on your plate, or maybe you don't, you're not feeling it, it's a crappy day outside, you don't want to go, but you're that type of person that always says no because oh it's rude or I don't want to let that person down. And you have to
Take
listen to
care of
your gut.
yourself.
Yes, you have to feel that feeling of I don't want to go, but you also have to feel the guilt and say no. Yes.
The cost is too high. The cost is resentment, breakdown. I'll run myself into exhaustion. It'll overextend me, and I'll bear the consequences of that. Anxiety, depression. Like, the cost is too high. It's just like, when we're shopping and we see a jacket we love, and oh my God, I love it. And then you turn the price tag over and it's like $300 more than you want to spend. And you're like, okay, well, I don't love it that much. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's like the cost is too high.
Yeah.
Yes, I want that jacket, but I don't want to pay the price. Yes, I want to go meet Sally for coffee. Of course I do. I like Sally. However, I'm not feeling like
Yeah.
I have the energy to put out right now for that. And so I'm going to not go because the cost is too high, because I've done
Yeah.
it 10
Yeah.
other times where I've gone. And then afterwards, I'm like, I wish I hadn't had it. I wish I'd listened to myself, because
Yeah.
now this is happening and I knew it was going to happen.
And that's exactly the how. Sticking with that time and time and time and time again,
The
making it a
cost is too
habit.
high.
The
The
cost is
cost
too
is too
high.
high.
And
Yeah.
then making a different behavior change and and keeping up though. You have to be consistent doing that
People
over
will,
and
and
over.
knowing people will try to talk you out of it.
Yeah.
But they don't need to get it. The cost is too high.
And so here's my thing though too. So then you do show up for coffee with Sally and you're there because of guilty obligation. And how do you think you act when you're there? People can feel it. You might go and actually, really enjoy yourself and that's great, but there's still
Yeah,
you
it's
might
going to be
not.
a bitch session. You're just going to complain the
Exactly.
whole
And
time
might not
about
be
your life.
present. Right. And you could be at home with your mind or wherever else you want to be.
Yeah.
That's your mind isn't even present with that person because you're doing what you would rather be doing or something like that. So it's not helpful or nice to them, and you're not being authentic, you're being a liar, right? No one's showing up as who they are or who they want to be.
And if they're a good friend, you
Yes.
can call them and say, can we pick a different day?
Yeah. I don't have the bandwidth.
I just don't have the bandwidth right now. And
Yes.
I want to give you a more energetic version of me, or a
Yes.
better version of me. Do you mind if we pick a different day? And if she doesn't understand, then
Yeah.
she's not probably going to be
Right.
my life. Not that, I mean, it's not like, let's break up, but when you start honoring yourself and not betraying yourself and being authentic, relationships don't survive it.
Exactly. Exactly. For sure. Claire, this has been a great conversation. And where can people find you?
You can find me on my website, claireUncapher.com. And I'm sure Jamie will put that in the show notes since it's challenging spelling.
Yes.
And also, I'm very active on Instagram. My handle is @claire.uncapher. And so you can hop over there and feel free to reach out.
Yeah. So I hope just, in general, the whole conversation, I feel like it just puts, it sheds a lightness, not shedding the light, but sheds a lightness on depression and anxiety to know that, there are things you can do. It's not who you are. And there's so much to explore out there, but really it's going inward.
Yeah. The answers are within.
Totally.
The symptoms of depression and anxiety, managing the uncomfortable feelings it's the distraction from what's really wrong. Why am I feeling this way? What's wrong? And if you don't know, consider subconscious work.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much, Claire.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to Authentically Raw. I'm excited to announce that my book, Results, Daily Planning, and Self-Development, is for sale on Amazon and on my website at jamiebarris.com. It's the perfect blend of a daily planner with hourly schedule. It has wellness journal prompts to help you develop yourself personally, professionally, and relationally while strengthening your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health and well-being. It's the ultimate life planner. It guides you along your journey to design and manifest the life you desire with clarity and confidence, one day at a time. Also on my website, jamiebarris.com, you can click on the freebie tab and download a free ebook. It is the best of the planner and wellness prompts. It has goal setting, habit formation, vision boards, you name it, it's in there. About 50 or so pages. Download it for free and it is yours. If you leave a review of this podcast or the book, snap a screenshot, email it to me, jamie@jamiebarris.com, and you will receive a free coaching session. As always, I'm rooting for you. Be real, be raw, be authentic.